The banging on her front door shattered Jessica's peace. Hands trembling, she peered through the peephole, heart racing. It was the HOA president, his face twisted in a scowl. This was it, the confrontation she had dreaded. Her support animal was about to be exposed as a lie, and she would lose the one thing that kept the darkness at bay. As the doorknob rattled, Jessica steeled herself, knowing her entire world was about to come crashing down. Jessica froze, her palms sweating as the HOA president's booming voice echoed through the door. "Open up, Jessica. We've had enough of that damn dog of yours barking all hours of the night." Swallowing hard, Jessica unlocked the door, her mind racing. She had hoped the barking wouldn't draw attention, that she could keep her PTSD struggles hidden from the prying eyes of her neighborhood. But now, it seemed her secret was about to be revealed. "What's the meaning of this?" the president demanded, storming into her living room. "That mutt of yours has been disturbing the peace for weeks. It ends today." Jessica felt her heart pounding in her chest. "Please, Mr. Simmons, you don't understand. He's not just a pet. He's a PTSD service animal. I need him." The president's eyes narrowed. "A service animal? Huh. Well, let's see the paperwork to prove it." He crossed his arms, an intense look of skepticism on his face. Panic rising, Jessica scrambled to the hall closet, fumbling with the paperwork that proved Rufus was a legitimate emotional support animal. "Here, look. It's all in order," she said, thrusting the documents towards him. Mr. Simmons snatched the papers, scanning them with a critical eye. This all seems to be in order. But that doesn't excuse the constant barking. You need to get that under control, or else." Jessica felt a lump in her throat. "I'm trying, I really am. Rufus helps me cope with my anxiety and PTSD. But sometimes, he just gets scared and starts barking. I'm doing my best to train him, but it's not easy." The president's expression softened slightly. "I understand you've got issues, Jessica, but the rest of us shouldn't have to suffer for it. Keep that dog quiet, or I'll have no choice but to file a formal complaint. And you know what that means. No more Rufus." With that, he turned on his heel and stormed out, leaving Jessica feeling utterly helpless. As the door slammed shut, Rufus came padding into the room, sensing his owner's distress. Jessica sank to the floor, burying her face in the dog's soft fur as the tears began to flow. She had thought having a PTSD service animal would make things easier, but now it seemed her life was about to unravel completely. The HOA wouldn't understand, and she couldn't bear the thought of losing Rufus, her only true source of comfort. Steeling herself, Jessica knew she had to find a way to keep Rufus and appease the HOA, or risk losing everything. The stakes had never been higher, and she was running out of time. Jessica paced her living room, mind racing. She had to find a way to keep Rufus and appease the HOA, but the pressure was overwhelming. Rufus whined softly, sensing her distress. "Oh, Rufus, what am I going to do?" she sighed, sinking onto the couch and burying her face in her hands. The dog nudged her leg, offering silent comfort. Suddenly, an idea struck. Jessica sat up straight, a glimmer of hope in her eyes. "That's it, Rufus. I know just what to do." She grabbed her phone and began furiously typing. Within an hour, Jessica had drafted a detailed letter to the HOA, outlining Rufus' role as her PTSD service animal and pleading for their understanding. She explained how Rufus' presence was essential for her mental health, and how the barking was a result of his own anxiety when sensing her distress. Carefully, she laid out a plan to address the issue, including additional training and soundproofing measures for her home. With trembling hands, Jessica printed the letter and placed it in an envelope, her heart pounding. This was her last chance to avoid losing Rufus and her fragile sense of stability. Steeling her nerves, she headed out to the HOA office, praying the president would be reasonable. The office door creaked open, and Jessica was greeted by the stern face of Mr. Simmons. "I was wondering when you'd show up," he said gruffly. "Come in." Jessica swallowed hard and stepped inside, clutching the envelope. "Mr. Simmons, I understand your concerns about the barking. That's why I've put together a proposal that I hope will address the issue while allowing me to keep Rufus." The president raised a hand. "Save it. I don't have time for excuses." He snatched the envelope from her grasp and tore it open, his eyes scanning the letter. Jessica held her breath, watching his expression intently. Slowly, his brow furrowed, and his gaze softened. "PTSD, huh? I see." He let out a resigned sigh. "Look, I can't just ignore the complaints from the other residents. But I'll tell you what, if you can prove Rufus is properly trained and that you're taking steps to keep him quiet, I'll give you one more chance." Jessica felt a wave of relief wash over her. "Oh, thank you, Mr. Simmons. I promise I'll do everything I can. Rufus and I won't let you down." The president nodded gruffly. "You better not. This is your last warning. If I get one more complaint, that dog's out of here. Understand?" Yes, I understand," Jessica replied, her heart soaring. She hurried out of the office, already mentally mapping out her next steps. She had to prove to the HOA that Rufus was a responsible, well-trained service animal, and she only had one shot to do it. Jessica burst through the front door, her mind racing. She had to act fast as she was going to prove to the HOA that Rufus was a responsible, well-trained service animal. Rufus bounded over, sensing her excitement. "Okay, boy, listen up," Jessica said, kneeling down and looking into his eyes. "We've got one more chance to convince the HOA that you're worth keeping around. No more barking, you hear? We've got to be on our best behavior from now on." Rufus tilted his head, as if understanding her words. Jessica smiled and gave him a good scratch behind the ears. "That's my good boy. Now, let's get to work." Over the next few days, Jessica put Rufus through an intense training regimen. She worked with him on obedience commands, desensitizing him to loud noises, and teaching him to remain calm even in stressful situations. It was exhausting, but Jessica was determined to show the HOA that Rufus could be a model canine citizen. As the deadline for the HOA's final decision loomed, Jessica decided to take Rufus on a public outing to demonstrate his training. She chose a busy park, filled with barking dogs, rambunctious children, and other potential triggers. Jessica held her breath as Rufus sat patiently by her side, undeterred by the commotion around them. When a stray ball rolled near them, Rufus didn't so much as flinch. Jessica beamed with pride, praising him for his composure. Just then, a familiar face approached. It was Mr. Simmons, the HOA president. Jessica's heart skipped a beat, but she maintained her composure. "Fancy seeing you here, Jessica," Mr. Simmons said, eyeing Rufus with a hint of curiosity. "Mr. Simmons. What a coincidence," Jessica replied, trying to keep her voice even. "I'm just out with Rufus, working on his training. He's been doing so well, I thought I'd bring him to a busier setting to test his obedience." The president nodded, a slight smile tugging at the corners of his mouth. "I see. Well, he certainly seems well behaved." He reached out a hand, and Rufus obediently sat and allowed the man to pet him. Jessica held her breath, hoping Mr. Simmons would be impressed. After a moment, the president straightened up and cleared his throat. "Good work, Jessica. You've clearly been putting in the effort. I'll be sure to let the other board members know about Rufus' progress." Jessica felt a wave of relief wash over her. "Thank you, Mr. Simmons. I really appreciate your understanding. Rufus means the world to me, and I'll do whatever it takes to be a responsible pet owner." The president nodded. "See that you do. I'll be keeping an eye on things." With that, he turned and headed back the way he came, leaving Jessica and Rufus alone once more. Jessica buried her face in Rufus' fur letting out a shaky breath. They had passed the test, for now, but the battle was far from over. The next few weeks passed in a tense, uneasy calm. Jessica remained vigilant, working tirelessly to reinforce Rufus' training and minimize any potential for disruption. She soundproofed her home, installed calming music, and even hired a specialized animal behaviorist to provide additional guidance. Rufus, for his part, seemed to sense the gravity of the situation. He dutifully obeyed Jessica's commands, remaining calm and quiet even when faced with the usual neighborhood triggers. Jessica felt a swell of pride watching her beloved companion transform into the model service animal she needed him to be. But the reprieve was short-lived. One evening, as Jessica was preparing dinner, a frantic pounding erupted at her front door. Her heart racing, she peered through the peephole and gasped. It was Mr. Simmons, his face twisted in a furious scowl. Steeling herself, Jessica opened the door. "Mr. Simmons, what's wrong?" "What's wrong?" the president bellowed, barging into the house. "I'll tell you what's wrong. I just got another complaint about your damn dog, that's what." Jessica felt the blood drain from her face. "But that can't be," she stammered. "Rufus has been so well behaved. I've been working with him every day." Mr. Simmons jabbed a finger in her direction. "Well, it seems your training isn't working. The complaints are piling up, Jessica. I've got no choice but to file a formal grievance with the board." Panic rose in Jessica's throat. "Please, Mr. Simmons, you have to give us more time. Rufus is my PTSD service animal. I need him. I can't lose him." The president's expression softened slightly. "I understand, Jessica. But I've got a community to answer to. If your dog keeps disturbing the peace, there's nothing I can do." Jessica felt her knees go weak. This couldn't be happening. She had worked so hard, poured her heart and soul into making Rufus the perfect service animal. And now, it was all unraveling before her eyes. Sensing her distress, Rufus let out a soft whine and nuzzled Jessica's hand. She looked down at him, tears brimming in her eyes. "I'm so sorry, Rufus. I've failed you." Mr. Simmons cleared his throat, an unreadable expression on his face. "Look, Jessica, I'm willing to give you one more chance. But it's got to stop. No more barking, no more complaints. If I get even a whisper of trouble, that dog's gone. Understand?" Jessica nodded, clutching Rufus tightly. Yes, I understand. Thank you, Mr. Simmons. I won't let you down again, I promise." As the president turned to leave, Jessica felt a glimmer of hope. But she knew deep down this was a battle she couldn't afford to lose. Her very sanity, her lifeline, was at stake. Somehow, she had to find a way to keep Rufus by her side, no matter the cost. The days following the president's stern warning were some of the most stressful of Jessica's life. She was constantly on edge, hypervigilant to the slightest sound Rufus made. The poor dog seemed just as anxious, picking up on his owner's distress. Jessica tried every trick in the book to keep Rufus calm and quiet. She played calming music, diffused soothing essential oils, and even resorted to giving him natural supplements to ease his nerves. But still, the occasional bark or whine would slip out, sending Jessica into a panic. The strain was taking a toll, both physically and mentally. Jessica found herself jumping at the slightest noise, her heart racing every time she heard a knock at the door. She couldn't sleep, couldn't focus on anything but the looming threat of losing Rufus. One night, as Jessica lay awake staring at the ceiling, Rufus let out a soft whimper. Instantly, she was on high alert, holding her breath and straining to hear any sounds from outside. After a moment of agonizing silence, there was a sharp rap at the door. Jessica's blood ran cold. It was happening again. Trembling, she crept to the peephole, praying it wasn't the HOA president. But to her horror, there stood Mr. Simmons, his brow furrowed in a deep scowl. Steeling herself, Jessica opened the door. Mr. Simmons. I. Save it, Jessica. The president cut her off, barging into the house. I told you, one more complaint, and that dog's gone. Well, guess what? I just got another one. Jessica felt her heart sink. But I've been so careful. Careful. Mr. Simmons scoffed. Clearly not careful enough. The neighbors are at their wits' end, and I'm out of patience. Rufus let out a small whine, sensing the tension in the room. Mr. Simmons shot him a withering glare. There you see. That right there is the problem. Jessica felt a surge of panic. Please, Mr. Simmons, give me one more chance. I'll do whatever it takes to keep Rufus quiet. I can't lose him. He's all I have. The president's expression softened slightly. Look, Jessica, I understand this dog means a lot to you, but I've got a whole community to think about. If I let this slide, the other residents will be up in arms. Jessica felt a lump rise in her throat. Then what am I supposed to do? Rufus is my PTSD service animal. I depend on him. Without him, she broke off, unable to finish the thought. Mr. Simmons let out a weary sigh. I tell you what, Jessica, give me 1 week. If you can prove to me that Rufus can be a model neighbor, I'll let this slide. But if there's even a hint of trouble, he's gone. Understood. Jessica felt a glimmer of hope. Yes, I understand. Thank you, Mr. Simmons. I won't let you down, I promise. As the president turned to leave, Jessica couldn't help but feel a sense of dread. The stakes had never been higher, and she knew she was running out of time. But she was determined to do whatever it took to keep Rufus by her side. The week that followed was a blur of intense training, endless anxiety, and steely determination. Jessica poured every ounce of her energy into ensuring Rufus remained the model service animal he needed to be. She worked with him for hours on end, reinforcing commands, desensitizing him to triggers, and rewarding even the slightest hint of calm behavior. Rufus, sensing his owner's distress, seemed to intuitively understand the gravity of the situation. He dutifully obeyed, his eyes fixed on Jessica's every move. But the strain was starting to show. Jessica found herself on the verge of exhaustion, her nerves frayed by the constant vigilance required to keep Rufus in check. Every unexpected noise, every passing stranger, sent her heart racing with fear of another complaint. As the deadline approached, Jessica knew she had to take drastic measures. She decided to enlist the help of Rufus' animal behaviorist, hoping the expert could provide the final piece of the puzzle. The specialist arrived promptly, assessing Rufus with a critical eye. Jessica, I can see you've been working hard with him, she said, her brow furrowed in concentration. But there's still an underlying tension that we need to address. Jessica felt her stomach twist in knots. What do you mean? I've done everything I can. Rufus has been so well behaved, I don't understand. The behaviorist nodded sympathetically. I understand how stressful this must be for you. But Rufus is picking up on your anxiety, and it's causing him to become hypervigilant. We need to find a way to help you both relax, to create a sense of calm and safety. Jessica felt a glimmer of hope. How do we do that? It's going to take some work, the specialist replied. But I think I have an idea. Let's start with some breathing exercises, some gentle massage to help Rufus unwind. And I want you to try some meditation techniques to center yourself. The more relaxed and grounded you can be, the more Rufus will follow your lead. Jessica nodded, her mind racing. Okay, let's do it. I'll do whatever it takes. Over the next few days, Jessica and Rufus immersed themselves in the specialist's calming regimen. Slowly but surely, Jessica felt the tension begin to melt away, replaced by a sense of peace and clarity. And Rufus, sensing his owner's newfound tranquility, became a picture of serenity. The day of the final evaluation arrived, and Jessica found herself standing before Mr. Simmons, Rufus at her side. The president's gaze was stern, but Jessica felt a quiet confidence welling up within her. "Well, Jessica, let's see what you've got," Mr. Simmons said, his eyes narrowing. Jessica took a deep breath and nodded. "Rufus, stay," she commanded, her voice steady. Rufus obediently sat, his eyes fixed on his owner. For the next several minutes, Jessica put Rufus through a series of exercises, each one demonstrating his impeccable training and unwavering composure. Mr. Simmons observed in silence, his expression unreadable. Finally, the president let out a soft sigh. "All right, Jessica, I'm impressed. Looks like your dog really is a service animal after all." Jessica felt a wave of relief wash over her. "Thank you, Mr. Simmons. I promise, you won't have any more trouble from us." The president nodded, a hint of a smile playing on his lips. "See that I don't. For your sake, and for Rufus." As Mr. Simmons turned to leave, Jessica felt a surge of gratitude. They had made it through the crisis for now. But she knew the battle was far from over. Rufus was safe, for the moment, but she would have to remain ever vigilant, ever prepared to defend her lifeline against the prying eyes of the HOA. In the weeks that followed, Jessica and Rufus settled into a new normal. The president's final evaluation had earned them a temporary reprieve, but Jessica knew it was only a matter of time before the HOA turned its scrutinizing gaze on them once again. She remained ever vigilant, continuing the intensive training regimen with Rufus and finding solace in the calming routines the animal behaviorist had recommended. Slowly, the constant state of anxiety began to subside, replaced by a cautious optimism that they might just pull this off. But the respite was short-lived. One afternoon, as Jessica was out walking Rufus, she noticed a small group of neighbors gathered near the HOA office, their voices raised in agitation. Curious, she approached, only to overhear snippets of a heated conversation. "Can't believe they're letting that dog stay. Barking all hours of the night, it's ridiculous." Jessica's heart sank. It was happening again. Gripping Rufus' leash tightly, she made her way over to the group, bracing herself for the confrontation. "Excuse me, what's going on here?" she asked, her voice trembling slightly. The neighbors turned, their expressions a mix of frustration and disdain. "Oh, look who it is," one woman sneered. "The one with the service dog." Jessica felt her cheeks flush. "I don't understand. What's the problem?" Another neighbor stepped forward, his brow furrowed. "The problem is, we're sick and tired of that dog of yours keeping us up all night. Didn't the HOA make you get it under control?" Jessica swallowed hard. "They did, and I have. Rufus is a legitimate PTSD service animal, and I've been working with him extensively to ensure he doesn't disturb the peace." The woman scoffed. "Oh, please. We all know that's just an excuse. That mutt is nothing but a nuisance, and the HOA should have gotten rid of it ages ago." Jessica felt a surge of anger, her grip on Rufus' leash tightening. "That's not true at all. Rufus is an essential part of my treatment, and he's been nothing but well-behaved. If you have a problem, take it up with the HOA, not me." The neighbors exchanged exasperated looks, shaking their heads. "Oh, we plan to," the man growled. "You can bet we're going to make sure that dog is gone for good this time." With that, the group stormed off, leaving Jessica trembling with a mix of fear and fury. She knew the battle wasn't over, not by a long shot. The neighbors were determined to get rid of Rufus, and she had to find a way to stop them before it was too late. Clutching Rufus close, Jessica hurried home, her mind racing. She had to be prepared, had to find a way to prove once and for all that Rufus was a legitimate service animal deserving of his place in the community. The stakes had never been higher, and she was running out of time. Jessica paced her living room, her mind racing. The neighbors' renewed complaints had shattered the fragile peace she and Rufus had managed to achieve. She knew the HOA would be hearing about this latest incident, and the stakes had never been higher. Rufus watched her intently, sensing his owner's distress. Jessica paused, kneeling down to scratch him behind the ears. "Don't worry, Rufus," she murmured. "I'm not going to let them take you away. You're my lifeline, and I'll do whatever it takes to keep you by my side." Steeling her nerves, Jessica picked up the phone and dialed the HOA president's number. After a few tense rings, Mr. Simmons' gruff voice answered. "What is it, Jessica?" "Mr. Simmons, I need to meet with you," Jessica said, her voice trembling. "It's about Rufus. The neighbors are causing trouble again." There was a long pause on the other end of the line. "I see. Come by the office tomorrow afternoon. We'll discuss this." Jessica felt a glimmer of hope. "Thank you, Mr. Simmons. I'll be there." The following day, Jessica entered the HOA office, Rufus at her side. Mr. Simmons was waiting, his expression unreadable. "All right, Jessica. What's this all about?" Jessica took a deep breath. "The neighbors have been complaining again, Mr. Simmons. They're saying Rufus is a nuisance and that the HOA should get rid of him." The president frowned. "I see. And what do you have to say about that?" Jessica steeled herself. "Rufus is a legitimate PTSD service animal, Mr. Simmons. He's been extensively trained, and I've gone to great lengths to ensure he doesn't disturb the peace. These neighbors are just prejudiced against him, and I won't let them take him away from me." Mr. Simmons regarded her for a long moment, then let out a weary sigh. "Look, Jessica, I understand this is important to you, but I've got a whole community to answer to. If the complaints keep rolling in, I'm going to have no choice but to take action." Jessica felt her heart sink. "Please, Mr. Simmons, you have to understand. Rufus is the only thing that keeps the darkness at bay. Without him, She broke off, her voice wavering. The president's expression softened. "I know, Jessica. I can see how much he means to you, but my hands are tied. If you want to keep Rufus, you're going to have to do something about those neighbors." Jessica's brow furrowed. "What do you mean?" Mr. Simmons leaned back in his chair. "I'm saying you need to get them on your side. Convince them that Rufus is a vital part of your life, and that he's not the nuisance they think he is. If you can do that, maybe we can put this whole mess behind us." Jessica felt a surge of determination. "I can do that, Mr. Simmons. I'll make them understand, I promise." The president nodded. "All right then. You've got one more chance, Jessica. Don't mess this up." As Jessica left the office, Rufus by her side, she felt a renewed sense of purpose. She knew the battle wasn't over, but she was more determined than ever to keep her beloved companion by her side. With Rufus as her guide, she was ready to face the neighbors head-on and prove once and for all that their bond was unbreakable.